show you guys a quick little maintenance video. A buddy of mine wanted to see how I maintenance my my G6R, so I'm going to show you guys that real quick. So first thing you're going to do, this is my Bob Long G6R, so this is a Poppet valve gun. You should be able to follow along with any style Poppet valve gun. The only difference is yours might have a spring in it, not a big deal. So what you're going to do, first thing you're going to do is take the bolt out, okay? All you have to do is pull the pin up like this, right? Disconnects from the ram inside the gun here, and you should be good to go. So take the bolt out. You also want to have a microfiber. I have a microfiber down here. Microfiber, okay, so you don't lose things. So first thing you're going to do is take the bolt out. Now this is a Delrin bolt. It's like some type of plastic. You really don't need lube on a Delrin bolt. If yours isn't, if yours is metal or something else, put some lube on it. First thing you want to do is you can take a pick or a small Allen key and just go around and get rid of any gunk or crap around the O-rings like I'm sort of doing here. There's some junk in there you don't need. Another quick tip is you want to get yourself a toothbrush. Obviously not the one you use to brush your teeth, and that's really good for, you know, getting in the nooks and crannies and cleaning things out and of that nature. So I use my toothbrush, I get in there, I clean around the O-rings, stuff like this. You want to get inside the bolt as well. If you have a brake paint in your gun, you're going to want to get in here and clean that. So you clean your bolt. Mine's a Delrin bolt, so mine doesn't really need any lube on it. So I'll put that aside. Take your bolt out, clean it. Next thing you want to do is just clean your breech, okay, which is here. So you clean your breech, grab yourself a swab it like this, and you're good to go. That's done. Next thing you're going to want to do, you're going to want to take your back cap off. Your back cap is back here. This is what houses your ram. Now, some may be an Allen key like mine is. Some may be a twist off. You know, some may be like a cotter pin style, like a real rifle. You just take the cotter pin out and then remove the pin, and everything should fall out the back. Off, okay. Now, what I do is I just tap the ram out like that. That's the best way to do it. That's the safest way. Make sure you keep your parts together. So I just drop the nut back in there, and I'll put that aside. Another thing I like to do is I'll like lay things out in order of how I take it out. So I'm going to do that. I don't know if you guys can see it. So this is my ram, okay? If you don't know how this works, the bolt sits up here like this. It connects down into the ram like so, okay? It hits in there, and this is the ram is what moves, and it goes back and forth like this. So that's how it works. If you want to see a video on how paintball guns work, comment below. I can make a video like that for you guys as well. Alright, so first thing you want to do on your ram is you want to clean it, okay? There's old lube on there, it's nasty, blah blah blah. So you just take your microfiber or your Kleenex, your towel, whatever you have, okay? Just clean it off, clean out all the old lube and everything like that. You also want to be inspecting the O-rings. If there's chips in the O-ring or a rip or something, you're going to want to get that out of there, because the air may not seal properly, and then you're going to have a problem. So make sure your O-rings are in good condition and they're clean. So I just cleaned the ram real quick, no problem. I have some super lube here that I got from a good buddy Frank of mine. Shout out to Frank if you're watching this, I appreciate it. Oh no, wait, this is Dow 55 actually. That'll still work fine. So yeah, my bad, this is actually Dow 55, which comes with the G6R when I bought it, which is totally fine to use. So you want to take, you know, a little bit, put it all over the O-rings. I kind of smear it all over the ram just for shits. It's not going to hurt it, right? So you got all your fresh lube on there. You're all good to go. I'm going to put that aside just for now. Next thing I'm going to do, if you don't have a Delrin bolt, if you have just a regular style bolt made of metal probably, you're going to want to put lube on it. So I'm going to put a little bit of lube on my bolt. I've got some super lube here that I got from Frank. Again, shout out to Frank. So I'm just going to put a little bit on each O-ring like so. You just dab a little bit on there. You take your other finger and just smear it around. Make sure the O-rings are lubed up nice. You don't need a lot on the bolt really, unless you're shooting a spool valve gun. Let's get that out of there. So yeah, so put some lube on your bolt, okay? You're good to go. Make sure the O-rings are intact, okay? Because especially the O-rings on your bolt, if you have a leak, or sorry, if you have a crack in one of them, you may have a leak and you'll hear it out your barrel, which is no good. You don't want that, okay? So lube your bolt, put that off to the side. Remember to keep your parts in order. That's how I do it. Next thing you're going to want to do, after you've taken out the ram and the bolt, is I like to take my eye covers off. Now, normally you should clean the reg. You don't need to clean the regulator that often. Mine's actually on there really, really good, so I'm not going to bother with that. I think I just cleaned it before I started playing this year. So what I do is I take my eye covers off. This is where your detents are also going to be. So you take these off, right? So inside here you can see the connection comes up for my laser eyes, and my detents are on this little spring here. Be very careful when you're playing around with this stuff, okay? So what I do is I just clean around inside, make sure everything's all clean, make sure the wires are good, take a little look at my detents. My detents still feel good, so my detents are good to go for next time. I had another gun, and my detents went on that, so I fixed that. Again, you can clean inside the eyepiece here, so we'll clean all that up. And I'm just going to do the one side as a demonstration for you guys. And then also, if you have a spring detent, make sure it's lined up properly when you put it all back together, because you don't want to have the spring be, I don't know, cockeyed or compressed in the wrong way or something like that. So your detent's not going to work. You take your eye cover off, just clean around inside there, make sure it's all clean and good to go. Make sure all the connections are good, check your detent. How you can check your detent, if you don't know what your detent is, it's what holds the ball in the breech, so it doesn't just roll out your barrel. You can stick your finger inside the breech this way, or you can come down from the feed neck. There's usually like a little ball bearing, or on Planet Eclipse guns, it's like a little black, little like, I don't know, little pin or something. So mine still feel pretty good, and I'm just checking it still moves properly, because I got the spring there, so that's done. I'm not going to take off the reg, but the reg is really, really simple. All you do is you unscrew your regulator, same thing, you tap it out, and then just be very careful how it all falls out. You put it back the same way. So you take your reg out, you clean it, wipe off the old lube, put the new lube back on, put it back together, throw it back up there, screw it up, you're good to go. I'm not going to take out the trigger, because that's a really long, tedious process. But if you get shot in the trigger guard, for example, you may get a whole bunch of paint inside on your board and on your micro switch. I don't know if you guys can hear that. That's the micro switch being activated. So you want to make sure that's clean. You don't need to do that too often. With your poppet valve gun, all you really got to worry about is your bolt, which is here, which goes up here on this part, and your ram. Okay, your ram goes down here in this part, and that's what kind of powers everything. Another thing I like to do is, I don't have any Q-tips with me here, but I'm looking inside my my ram, and it looks pretty clean, so I should be all set. So I've already put lube on this stuff, so I'm going to throw it back together. So I'll take my ram, I'll drop that in. I like to give it a knock on the table for it to drop in place. I'll take my back cap, or your screw, or your cotter pin, or whatever you have, and we'll put that back together. So we'll do that up real quick, like so. Another thing you can do, if your gun has a macro line, now mine doesn't have a macro line, sometimes you want to take that out and just make sure it's not frayed on the end of the macro line. There's like a little collet. You just pull the collet in and then pop the macro line out. It might be a little bit challenging if you've never done it before. No big deal. It should all go back together, no problem. So you can just clean up the macro line if you need to. If you have a leak from your macro line, there might be a split somewhere. You can like file it down if it's long enough, cut it, or just buy a new one, and then you pull the collet back, shove the macro line back in, you're good to go. So I've got the ram back in there, no problem. Now, I was up at my local field reffing a little while ago, and this kid had a problem with his gun. The bolt wasn't moving, but it was airing up and it was shooting and the RAM was fine. He didn't have the pin of the bolt, which is this piece here, clicked into the RAM, which is inside here. I don't know how well you can see it. Right now it's right in line with my finger and there's a little notch cut out. So you always want to make sure that the pin of the bolt clicks into the RAM, because it's the air that powers the RAM and the RAM moves the bolt. Okay? So I'm going to put that back together. There it is. And another thing you can do to check is you can just move the bolt back and forth, and if you can feel the RAM hitting your back cap, then you know you're good to go. Okay? One more thing as well, I'm not going to do it because I just did it a while ago. Whenever you tech your gun, or like once a month, change your battery, okay? You don't want to run out with a dead battery on the field. You know, do the tongue test, whatever you want to do. Maybe your gun has a LED board like mine, and you can see the battery level. I always like to change my batteries. Always good to have batteries in your toolkit as well. So that's pretty much all you need to do with a poppet valve gun. You don't need to get like super in depth with it. There's the LPR up here. It's really not a big deal. I hardly ever touch that. But you do need to clean your bolt, especially if you break paint. And then you need to clean your RAM as well. And then I always just like to take my my eye covers off, make sure my detents are good, make sure there's no paint in there, make sure the eyes are clear. And then I would just swab it one more time, going this way, go down from the feed neck as well, and you're pretty much good to go. Okay, and then you put it all back together, and you should be good to shoot paint.